bios plus logos. Yeah. So logos is Latin for what? The logic of it, right? The study of, right? It's the study of. Any other logic that you have heard of other than biology? Any other logic? Any other logic? Micro. That is again microbiology. Physiology. Yes. Histology. Right. In your first page, there's another two logies: histology, physiology, right? Ecology, three logies. Ecology, right? So any logy is what? It's the study of, right? Logos in Latin, right? Bios is the sort of life aspect. So what is life? What is life? How do you define the condition of living? So that's a spiritual question, right? How do you define something as living and non-living, right? So, I mean, so anything could become unliving at any given moment, right? Anything that we consider as living, a person walking on the road, they can become non-living within a few minutes, right? So, what is the condition of living? How do we sort of decide that this desk is not living, but you guys are living? What defines you? Right? There are certain qualities only living organisms have, right? So we are going to study them today, characteristics of organisms, right? So that's why if you are doing biology, you have to know what is your scope of study, right? Are you going to study everything? No, we are going to set a particular set of characteristics. Then we define you are living. So I'm going to study you because I'm studying biology. Makes sense? That's the logic behind the bios part of it, right? So what is living can be, as I said, it can be spiritual, right? You have a sort of a independent thinking, you have free will, or you have a soul, or whatever, right? But as someone in the medical field, the state of living and non-living is a very sort of even what do you say, career risking thing that we have to know, right? Why? A doctor announces the time of death. Have you heard this? Right? If a patient dies in the ward, who is, so in another 2 years, I'll pass out. Then I'll be an intern, known as a, do you know, it's they are called like an intern doctor is called anyone? Anyone who has any doctor siblings? Siblings or relatives? No. They're called a house officer, right? House officer වගේම තමයි නිකන් ගෙදර වෙලා තියෙන ward එක. Right? Intern කියන්නේ ගෙදර යන්න බෑ. Every 2 weeks you get a holiday. Every 2 weeks once you are an intern. So usually you are just an intern. You are just about 27 years old and you are in the ward and you get a patient, and within 1 hour of admission on admission he's having a cardiac arrest, heart attack, and then you try, give CPR, give adrenaline, oxygen, everything you do, he passes. Right? How do you know he has passed? Right? That's a place where there's a legal side to the state of living as well. Right? So have you heard, right, doctors, they say, like in the news, have you heard doctors la අවිල්ලත් ටික වෙලාවකින් CPR දෙන එක නැවැත්තුවා, බේර ගන්න උත්සාහ කරේවත් නැහැ, right? Because we have, under legal circumstances, right, we have a set of things that we check to see if a person has died, right? There are some reflexes. We shine a torch on the eye, and the pupils, what should happen to the pupils once you shine a torch? මොකද වෙන්නේ අපේ කළු පාට dot එකට pupil? It should get small, right? It should constrict, චුටි වෙන්න. So if that reflex is not working, that means what? The signals are not going to the brain spinal cord, brain stem, right? That's one of the conditions. And then there's no pulse that we can feel, and the ECG becomes a flat line, right? Those are few of the let's say parameters we consider, right? then what is going to happen if the patient has passed in the ward? Then we sort of close the curtains around him, and we keep all the things we did to him attached, the ECG machine, the oxygen, everything, we keep it like that. We don't take off. Because why? The coroner must come, right? So the legal part of the hospital must come and declare, right? They must write a death certificate and declare that this patient has passed on admission at this given time, right? So that is, so if your target is to be a doctor, or even let's say doing biology, you can be a forensic scientist, right? Work in a forensic lab, right? Adhikarana Vaidya Vidya. So in that field, your life or your job might depend on how do you decide if a person is living or not. Get it? Right? So in here, we are not that serious, right? We are going to see basically how we can identify if something comes into our study. Are we going to study this as biology or not? Get it? Right? So highlight in the tube that you got. If you don't have highlighter, it's fine. Right? Underline. Bios is life. Logos is study. Those two words are enough. Online students, no issue, right? So when you take a look at this, so even if I just told you that the resource book is your Bible, right? But does that mean that you have to study? Katapadam karanna one, the civil scientists are unable to provide an acceptable definition for life. No, right? So part of my job is to sort of give you some common sense what to study and what not to study, right? By heart, right? Life is something special and unique, right? They are just the introduction, okay? Then biology is a subject which is very vast and complex. Hence, for the convenience, it is divided into three primary branches. Right. What are the three primary branches of study in biology? So actually, before 2000, year 2000, your biology had biology subject had two sections, right? As when sort of not your parents, when they did, no, when they did A levels before 2000, under biology, so the one subject that you studied before A levels, they had three subjects actually, right? They had zoology and what else? Botany, right? Botany, right? So zoology and botany are the two subjects that they studied under biology, right? But actually, biology has three main branches that they sort of in the old syllabus that they sort of didn't cover. There is a third subject, that is what? Microbiology, right? Microbiology. So write down under there number 1, 2, and 3, zoology, okay? Zoology, botany, and microbiology. Online students, clear, right? Okay, right. Then we have to talk about some areas of studies. These are some examples, right? So biology, as they say, it's a very complex and vast subject, right? Every day we are adding topics into this, that the subject that we call as biology, right? So in your syllabus, we are going to cover, we are going to touch many of these areas of study. For example, cell biology comes under what lesson? Cellular basis of life, right? We are going to study internal structures of the cell. That is cell biology. Then histology is a bit of a next step, right? So cells, many cells get together to form what? A tissue. So histology is the study of tissue. So write down in front of histology, scientific study of tissues. Or just say study of tissues. Histology. Histology. Then anatomy. Anatomy. Or anatomy. Whatever. Right? So that's a subject in your first year of medicine if you go. Right? So human anatomy is what we have for medicine actually. So there's, if you're doing veterinary science, you have, I think, a lot of anatomy to study. Right? So what sort of animals do vets? Only mammals, sort of, right? Mammals and birds are the, do they treat lizards or something? Do they treat reptiles? Vets? I don't know, right? So they are sort of, anatomy is sort of a bit more expansive, right? But human anatomy is much more, why? It's much more vast because it's relevant to us, right? So that knowledge doesn't have a limit, right? So in our first year, we have the subject of anatomy, and we actually have, there's no definite textbook to study, right? So even different faculties have their sort of like their own, let's say, traditional textbook, right? So there are textbooks called Last Anatomy. Have you heard? Sorry, Last. And there's a TV show called Grace Anatomy. Anyone has Grace Baladeva? Like Grace Anatomy. That's a sort of a fashionable textbook. There are like different vibes to anatomy textbooks, right? There's a Chaurasia. There's a one called Chaurasia. It's an Indian one. So all the sort of Gode people use the Chaurasia, right? Like the Last for the batch tops, and Grace Anatomy for like posh people. There's different things. I used to use Chaurasia, right? Right, because it has some clear diagrams, right? Anatomy, for anatomy you have to have a visual idea, right? So in your tute, I have included this diagram, this one, right? That's something we study under anatomy. Label that diagram underneath, right? Okay, label that diagram. It's what we call as a sagittal section. Sagittal section. Sagittal, sagittal section, right? So sagittal means you have cut the body like this and turn it around, right? You are looking at this view, all right? Can you see? Right? Sagittal view of the head and neck. Head and neck. Okay. So can you see there are so many numbers there? Right? Can you see there are so many numbers there? That's one of the tests that we get called a spot test. In under anatomy, we are given such a specimen, right? We are given such a specimen and we are asked to, they say, identify number one. So what are the numbers you can see here? Things you know. 41 and 42 is called the palate. Can you see? 41 and 42 is called the palate. It's like the separation between your nose and your mouth. Palate, you can feel with your tongue, upper part of your mouth. Yeah, that's the palate, right? So they will put a sort of a pin on it and say, what is this structure? You have to identify it within 30 seconds, right? Like that. Then 66 is the brain stem, like lower part of your brain, like that. That is anatomy, right? Running right in front of anatomy, study of internal structure. Study of internal structure. Study of internal structure. Right. Then physiology. Physiology is again a subject that you study in the first year. Anatomy, biochemistry, and physiology are the three subjects that you have in the first year and about 1.5 years, right? Physiology is how the body functions, right? So we study the structure and the anatomy, how it functions under physiology. And then there's another subject called biochemistry, right? Biochemistry is the sort of the collection of all the chemical reactions taking place, right? How energy is produced, how waste is disposed, how food is digested, how food is absorbed, right? Every reaction, right? And I have included a diagram. I'll explain that. Okay. So right in front of physiology, study of function, study of body function, study of body function. When I walk, the camera tracks me. It might be annoying for the online students. Okay. Okay. That is physiology. Biochemistry, study of the chemical reactions in animals. Study of the chemical reactions in animals. Okay. Then genetics. Genetics is study of inheritance. Write down study of inheritance. Study of inheritance. What is inheritance? That is inheritance also, right? But inheritance in this sense, what is biological inheritance? What information that you get from your mother and father in terms of your genes, right? How you look, how you behave, or your height, your intelligence, your skin color, your hairstyle, style of your sort of everything you got from your parents. So that is that study is called students. Let's see. Okay, right. So I showed you this. I'll explain this diagram a little bit. So have you seen this sort of people? I'll erase this. Have you seen this sort of a person in sort of when you in society? Have you seen this sort of a person? Right? This sort of a person. What is sort of their unique character? Like what is their sort of? They are a bit what we can't say. They are sort of have a intelligence disability, right? They are low IQ usually, right? What is it called? Down syndrome, right? So I just gave it an example. So this is one of the things that we study under genetics. This is all of your chromosome, right? This is every DNA that you have in your body. We can organize it into this sort of a pattern. This is called a karyotype. Okay, you have this, you have everything that I'm saying is included in the syllabus. Okay, under genetics, you have to study this. You have to study all the facial features of this person, right? And you have to memorize it. So nothing is out of syllabus, right? I'm saying. So you might remember that I taught you this in the introduction when we are there in genetics, right? So this person is said to have Down syndrome, right? It's a syndrome. What is a syndrome? It's like a collection of features, right? This person doesn't have only one unique feature, right? He has a collection of unique features. He has a syndrome, right? He has a round face, right? Can you see? And his sort of eyelid, lower eyelid is bit thick, right? They have an extra eyelid, we say, extra one. And they have a flat facial profile. And usually, have you seen them speak? A Down syndrome person, have you seen them speak? They have this sort of a, like, they can't speak properly, right? Because they have a small mouth and a big tongue, right? Their mouth is small and their tongue is big compared to their mouth. So they have trouble pronouncing words. And together with the fact they have a low IQ, they usually can't speak clearly, right? So where is the issue? Why is this person like this? What happened to him? That's something we study under genetics, right? So how many chromosomes does humans have? Homo sapiens? You learn this on O levels, right? Chromosomes, like DNA get together to form Varna Deha, right? Chromosomes. Like all the DNA can be condensed into these sort of structures, right? How many do we have humans? It changes from person to person. Okay? 46, right? We have 46 chromosomes. Okay, so if you count how many is here? Count in your tubes. How many? So there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And how many in total? Count and tell me. How many chromosomes does this person have? Online students, count and tell me. Put in the chat. Please send to the main chat, okay, Buddha? Because I'm not going through the private chats. Please put in the main chat. Yeah. 47. So, is he normal? You and I have, hopefully none of, I mean, I'm not downs, right? They can be sort of very hidden sometimes, right? Down right? This person has 47. Where is the issue? Can you notice? Look carefully. Look carefully. Where is the problem? Here? Can you see? How many is there? There's 3, you know, right? Usually, when we talk about your chromosomes, usually one came from your father, and this, I mean, the next one. So usually this pair of chromosomes, one came from your, I mean, the red one, think it's from your mother, the blue one from your father, right? This is from your father, and its partner came from your mother, right? It's what usually happens. But in a Downs person, they have 3. In this is the 21st chromosome, okay? We give numbers. They have what we call as 3 chromosomes in the 3 chromosomes for the 21st set of chromosomes. So we call it as trisomy 21. Trisomy. So this 3 having more chromosomes is going to cause all these problems, a syndrome. All right. So write down under Down syndrome, put a dash like this and write down trisomy 21. All these are in your syllabus, okay? Trisomy 21. Sometimes having too much of something is bad. Having too much chromosome, it can give you straight hair, but though usually Downs people have straight, short hair like mine, right? So, yeah. Okay. That is something we study under genetics. Clear? Then come down to the diagram below, right? This is actually a bit something extra, but I'll quickly explain it. This is something we study under biochemistry, right? So I'll quickly explain this. So once you had a heart attack, right, you come to the hospital saying your chest is hurting, right? You have a chest pain that is sort of burning, like you're having gastritis, and it goes up your arm, sorry, along your arm and up to your neck and everything. So we think immediately it's a heart attack, right? But it could be very bad gastritis as well. Okay. So what is the first thing that we do if someone comes to the hospital and say they have a massive chest pain? We do an ECG. Have you heard ECG? We have ECG in your syllabus as well. We like attach leads to your chest and also your hands and feet, and we take like a, have you seen ECGs like this? Goes like this and then goes like down and that and then like this. We take an ECG. But if so, that is the first test. So if the ECG suggests that person had a heart attack, we call it a myocardial infarction. Then we have to do some biochemical tests. We have to take that person's blood and do some tests to confirm. Okay. This is such a test. one of the things that we test is called cardiac troponin, this, and CKMB. Both these chemicals you can detect in a person's blood if his heart muscle has been damaged. So if they have a heart attack, means what? Their heart muscle has been damaged. So if they have been damaged, the heart muscle sort of releases some of its chemicals into blood, right? So immediately, can you see, about 2 days after heart attack, you can see his troponin levels reach a maximum, right? That means that is very confirmatory that the person had a heart attack, right? So that is something that we learn under biochemistry. These are, troponin is a chemical component of your heart muscle. So that study of these patterns, how we detect, how we test, how we interpret this, that is comes under biochemistry. Okay. Then it's self-explanatory. I have given something, right? Yeah, after myocardial infarction. CKMB and cardiac troponin in plasma after myocardial infarction. Okay. Any questions? No? No. Okay. Right. Then those are the areas of study. Ecology. Ecology is what we study under environmental, as I told you, right? The study of environment, right? That is ecology. No need to explain. Study of the environment. Right? Okay. Then we come to the next section, that is issues pertaining to biology. Issues pertaining to biology. So actually, even if they say these are issues, they are more sort of like we can say things to do in biology, like what we expect from a person who is studying biology, from someone that is just starting out like you, and to the person that is working at a very big, like agrochemical company or like a genetic engineering company, molecular biological company. So from your level to the most experts in the world, there are a few things that a person doing biology should try to solve in future, right? A few problems that we need to find solutions, right? That's what they mean here. They are not actually issues in biology, like there's no resource book available to people or something. They are not problems, but these are problems that we should try to solve using biology. You get what I mean, right? These are the things that we should sort of, using our biology knowledge, someday we should try to make a little change in these problems, they say, right? So some of these things can be questioned in your paper, some of the facts mentioned here. So we'll quickly go through. So the first thing, understanding biological diversity, right? So there's a fact given here. So at present, our planet is rich in diversity. Life on Earth formed around 3.8 billion years ago. So please highlight that. That is an MCQ point. That's an MCQ point. 3.8 billion years ago. So actually the Earth itself, the world, formed about 4.6 billion years ago. So it took about another 1.2 billion for the simplest cells. So what are this life on Earth? These are very simple cells, right? Just some collection of like biological molecules arranged into a small thing that we call actually as a protocell, right? It's not a proper cell even yet. Okay, so but we consider that is the start of life. So what is the starting point? 3.8 billion years ago. Okay. The first form organisms are believed to be heterotrophic anaerobic animals. Oh, heterotrophic anaerobic. What does those mean? Right. So when we are describing a certain organism, there are two criteria that we can sort of see in that organism. How does that organism get energy? How does that organism get its carbon? Why is carbon so important? Because we are all carbon based. If you are living on Earth, if you are born on Earth, life on Earth is carbon based, right? we are carbon-based animals. Our main elemental composition is carbon, right? Our proteins have carbon, carbohydrates have carbon, right? So it's very important how do you get carbon. If you take an animal, how does that organism get carbon? How does an organism get energy? Those are very important things, right? So energy source, and carbon source are two criteria that we talk about. So energy can come in two ways. What is the sort of the most cheapest way that we can see? What is the cheapest way of getting energy? The sunlight, right? Solar energy or the light energy. So we use the sort of a, let's say, a prefix එකක් කියන්නේ. Anyone who is using solar energy or light energy as the energy source, we use the prefix photo, right? Usually plants and photosynthetic bacteria ඒ වගේ අයට පුළුවන්, they can use sunlight as their energy source. But there are like you and me, can we use sunlight as an energy source? No. We have to eat someone that uses sunlight, right? We have to eat, no? Right? We have to eat someone that uses sunlight as the energy source to get our energy. Then how do we get energy from that? By eating that organism? By digesting it and sort of taking out the juices, the chemicals, right? So we get energy from chemicals, right? Chemo. Our prefix is chemo. Okay, so that is energy source, two categories. Carbon source can be organic carbon or inorganic carbon, right? What is inorganic carbon? Right, inorganic carbon, we usually have few molecules containing carbon that we consider as inorganic. Have you heard this? In chemistry, did you learn this? Usually, compounds containing carbon are considered as organic, right? But there are some molecules such as carbon dioxide, bicarbonate, right? So this bicarbonate can form a lot of salts, no? Calcium bicarbonate. Sorry, Ca, like this, no? So these few molecules are considered as inorganic carbon molecules, right? So these inorganic carbon sources using animals can use this mainly CO2 or bicarbonate as their carbon source. They can use this inorganic carbon, right? Where is this carbon dioxide mainly? Where can you find it? In the atmosphere, right? So these animals, if they're using inorganic carbon, we call them, right? What is the term? We use the term trophic, right? Trophic. If they can use inorganic carbon, we call them autotrophic. Autotrophic. Okay. Then if they use, what is the opposite other option? Organic carbon. We call them organic carbon now. We call them, that's the word we just came across, heterotrophic. Right. Terms are, and all these terms are interchangeable. These four terms can be interchanged. There are photoautotrophs. There are photoheterotrophs. There are chemoautotrophs. There are chemoheterotrophs. Right? Four categories like this, interchangeable. So, who are the first animals that originated on Earth? They were actually, they were given this, no? They have given that they were heterotrophic, but they were actually chemoheterotrophic, right? You can write down, they were actually chemoheterotrophic because there are no photosynthetic animals at the very beginning, right? Earth එක හැදිච්ච ගාම photosynthesize කරන්න හිටියේ නැහැ. Right in front of heterotrophic, they are chemoheterotrophic. And mm, on a side of your tooth, please write this down. No need to draw my crisscross second note, right? That was just to explain. Right? This exact chart you come across under microbiology, okay? Again, not out of syllabus. Online students, can you see? I go, then follows me. No? Okay. Online students, can you write it down? You can see, right? If you stay here, then you can see. Yeah. There's a space above the issues pertaining to biology, right? No need to write these, okay? Just maybe. Okay, write down. Yeah. Some examples for inorganic carbon sources. Okay. So they say the first organisms are heterotrophic, anaerobic, prokaryotes. What is anaerobic? Anaerobic. Anaerobic means they do not require oxygen to survive. Right? They do not require oxygen to survive. Do you need oxygen to survive? Right? If you don't get oxygen for more than 1 minute, even if you're not trained, you can get the complications and soon become a non-living entity. Right? So we are what we call as obligate aerobes. Right? We need oxygen to survive. There are bacteria and usually bacteria that are anaerobic. So the first organisms were sort of very close to bacteria, very similar to bacteria. They didn't need oxygen because why? The earlier didn't have any oxygen, right? Everyone not no oxygen, right? So they didn't have any choice but to be anaerobic, right? Okay. So draw an arrow to anaerobic and write somewhere above or below does not require oxygen. Does not require oxygen. Does not require oxygen. Online students, your tute will be delivered, right? So once you have registered and your addresses are finalized, your tute will be delivered. Okay, does not require oxygen. Then prokaryotic. Prokaryotic. So these words are given, I have to explain, right? So what is prokaryotic? Who is the opposite of prokaryotic? Do you know what is opposite of prokaryotic? Actually, this prokaryotic and the other opposite of it is for eukaryotic. These are what we call as cellular organizations. Cellular organization that is of two types as the given here, prokaryotic and eukaryotic. Write this down. Cellular organization as there's prokaryotic and there's eukaryotic. right? So in cellular organization, I won't give it to you right now, but keep in mind, when we are saying cellular organization, what we are actually looking at mainly is the nucleus of the cell. Okay. If the cell doesn't have a good nucleus, or we say a properly organized nucleus, we call it as a prokaryote, right? Like this. If you take a bacterial cell, I hope the online students can see. If you take a bacterial cell like this, can you see this is their DNA, right? This is their DNA. Right. Okay, I better screen share, right? So can you see they don't, the DNA is just lying in the nucleus, sorry, just lying inside the cell. It doesn't have any organization. It is just everywhere in the cell, right? We call this as a properly, not a properly organized nucleus. So why? That is because they are sort of primitive animals, primitive organisms. Their DNA is everywhere. They don't have a proper nucleus. We actually call this a nucleoid, right? Nucleoid. No need to sort of memorize that. That's what I'm saying, right? So it makes sense, right? The very first organisms to occur on Earth, they are not very organized, right? They are just learning now. So they didn't have a proper nucleus. They just had this organization that we call as prokaryotic. So what does a eukaryotic cell look like? So if we take this animal cell, right? We take out some of the parts. You can see, right? Okay. So can you see this purple color structure? This is your nucleus, right? It's like a main controlling center of the cell, right? It has been covered by a membrane, actually a double membrane, right? And it has so many supportive structures that we call as endoplasmic reticulum, right? So inside here you have the DNA. This is a eukaryotic cell, right? Can you see? These are the chromosomes I mentioned earlier, right? So this is very organized. This type of cells came later, right? Actually about 1.8 billion years ago, right? It took that much. So that was 3.8, no? This is now actually these type of cells came at 1.8 billion years ago. There's a 2 billion year gap, right? Very slow evolution, right? 2 billion years to get this sort of organization. Okay, that is prokaryotic and eukaryotic difference. Just keep that in your minds, right? No need to write anything down. Clear about the first organisms? Then come back to the tute. Scientists assume, based on their studies, that there are about 10 to 100 million species in the world. There's a dynamic relationship between the living world and the inanimate world. And each and every organism has a specific role in the environment for existence in the biosphere. So this role that an organism plays is called a biological niche. Okay, niche. These are again terms in your resource. Okay, I keep reminding people because they think I'm going tired of syllabus, right? Under environmental, we learn niche. So if you take like a stage drama, there's a main character, there's a supportive character, there's the lover, and there's the main girlfriend and everything, right? There are roles, no? Right? There's a tree and there's the flower in the like drama, like in your Montessori dramas, right? If you take a ecosystem or even your whole environment, every animal has a role that it plays, right? So take a massive tree in a forest, it produces a lot of oxygen, right? If you take similarly, if you take in the ocean, there are like floating organisms called plankton. Have you heard? Planktons, Pavina planktons. You can't even imagine. They're like many kilometers wide, these planktons. Go home and search, okay? Right? They produce so much oxygen, planktons, okay? So similarly, all these animals, however small or however big, they have a role that they play, right? So if you take a human farmer plays a massive role, right? They produce food and also they use resources in the soil. So they have a role that they play in the environment, right? Even us humans, even you and I, we use resources, right? We use petroleum fuels, we breathe oxygen, we produce excretory matter, right? So all those are roles that we play. Get it? That's it. The variety of life on Earth, the number of species, animals and microorganisms, the diversity of genes in these species, the different ecosystems on Earth, such as deserts, rainforests, and coral reefs, are all part of a biologically diverse Earth. So, what is the issue with this? Why are they saying there's like 10 to 100 million species, and there is so much diversity, and there are so many ecosystems? What is the challenge? All right. Actually, we don't know much about any of these things, right? So they say there's about 10 to 100 million species. Do you know how many we have studied and cataloged? Like we have given a name, scientific name, and we have described only about 1.2 million species, right? So we think minimum there's about 10 million species, maximum about 100 million species, right? So if you assume there's 100 million species, not even one, like around 1% has been studied, right? So many species of animals we haven't even looked at or even identified to give even given a name, right? So that is a not an issue actually. It's something we have to try to do, right? We have to identify these new organisms, find out what uses they have, right? What role they play, are they beneficial to us, right? We have to study those. That's one of the, let's they say, an issue. Okay, got it? Clear. Then understanding human body and its functions. So when studying biology, by studying histology, anatomy, one can gain the knowledge about the structure of organs. This results in understanding the functions of different organ systems and the relationship between structure and functions. Understanding human body. We have been trying to do that ever since the start of modern medicine, right? But there are many things that we can't even solve it. Have you found a cure to cancer? No, we haven't yet, right? Everything is still experimental, right? What are we doing when we say you have a cancer? We are trying to kill almost every cell in your body. Have you seen a person with cancer, right? Undergoing chemotherapy? What do they have? What are the problems do they have? They have hair loss. Their hair falls and they can't eat food properly. They can't digest. And their skin is sort of very sensitive. They can't go in the sun. And they have to wear a mask because they are going to easily get a like a small infection can get into a pneumonia in them. Why? Because when we are treating cancer, we give them like chemotherapy. We actually kill most of the cells in the surrounding area as well. We cannot target the cancer only, right? It's like if you want to sort of, if you have like enemies in a town, you can't like selectively send a team of people to take them out. You have to drop a massive bomb and kill the whole town, right? Get it? That's the cancer treatment we have at the moment, right? So if you want to survive, you are going to get a lot of side effects. So we don't know actually how to target those cancer cells specifically. That's a challenge, right? And what are the other challenges we have? We don't know how exactly cancer originates even, right? There are so many factors. If your parents, like if you're genetically predisposed to have a cancer, you are going to get a cancer. We don't know why, right? Some genes are going to give you cancer, right? How do they do that? We don't know, right? And there are some like other problems, like why do you get old, right? Why do you get old? Those are some questions we don't know, right? At a certain point of their life cycle, as cells in your body decide, I have lived enough and I'm going to die. They just decide that, right? So cells in your body just, okay, I have lived enough, and they are going to die, right? But there are some animals in the world, some lobsters or something I have heard, they are literally immortal because they don't have that sort of aging signal in their cells. Go home and search about it, right? So they only die because when they run out of food, right? This sort of there are some immortal organisms in the world, okay? But us humans, our cells, once they have lived a certain age, they decide, I'm not going to function properly anymore. So I'm going to die. That means what? You are getting older, right? So we don't know what that is, why that is, right? So those are some of the issues. Get it? And issues about how the human body functions. We have to, if we can identify and understand them one day, it will be Massive benefit, right? Okay. Then third one, sustainable use and management of natural resources and the environment. Then there's a definition here, the first definition in your syllabus. Natural resources are sources of material energy found naturally, which are used in everyday life and economic development. Please highlight that. Your definitions are very, 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 very important. Okay. Definitions. In your structured essay paper, they very commonly clear question your definition knowledge. When you are writing a definition, you have to be very, very careful, right? In a definition, we have what we call as a set of keywords. Keywords. So I'm taking my time to explain this because this is the foundation of your paper writing skills. Okay. When you write a definition, it's better if you can remember it word by word. But even if you don't remember, please pay your attention to not missing the keywords. If you miss the keywords that they want in the answer, no marks for a definition. Right? So take this definition for an example. The definition for natural resources. Right? So what are the most important terms that you can see? Sources of material and energy. Sources is a keyword. Sources. And then found naturally. Naturally is a keyword, right? If you haven't written naturally for natural resources, then it's a wrong definition. Got it? So draw and underline the word naturally. If you have missed that, 0 marks for that definition question. Then what else? You tell me what other words are important. We can say used in everyday life and economic development. Those are not that important, but they are required to complete the answer, right? What do we need natural resources for? Yeah. Okay. So why are we so concerned about these natural resources? Like from your grade 2-3 syllabus also we have like parisaraya ආරක්ෂා කරමු මොකද්ද ජල සම්පත සුරකීම ඒ වගේ like එහෙම තියෙනවානේ topics you write essays every day. Why are we so concerned? Because they are limited, no? They are limited. All these sources are limited, right? Especially our energy sources are limited. So once we have run out of them, the whole world is going to come to a stop, right? So once we have while we have them, we have to conserve them, right? So due to the increase in growth rate of human population, overuse of natural resources is taking place. It causes the threat of depletion of natural resources. Okay. Due to overexploitation of natural resources, various environmental problems can arise, right? What are the main environmental problems that can arise? There's 3, right? There's 3. I have given space, so write down. What are the 3? When you exploit, even overexploitation, 3 things can happen. The first thing is environmental pollution. Environmental pollution. First thing, environmental pollution. Environmental pollution. Online students, any issues? Take these down in a rough sheet of paper. Then once you have received the tute, you can complete the tute, okay? Environmental pollution. Then second thing, desertification. 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 You get it what I mean, right? So becoming a desert. A desert is it a very sort of a friendly place, a desert, right? Unless you are very specialized, you can't survive in a desert, right? So desertification, the world becoming a desert means there's going to be extinction of many animals. Many animals can't survive. That's a problem. Third one, loss of biodiversity, right? Loss of biodiversity. Loss of biodiversity. So can you see what is the first step? If we pollute the environment will get close to a desert. If because of the desert environment, many species will die, causing loss of biodiversity. Interconnected, right? You can even put arrows. Environmental pollution leads to desertification. Desertification leads to loss of biodiversity. Okay. Right. Online students, you can hear me, right? Any issues you can ask. Any issues? Right? Clear. So hence to overcome these problems, management of natural resources and the environment should be practiced. Knowledge of biology is useful to bring about remedies for the above problems, right? So in environmental, we learn about this, right? How to avoid over exploitation. What are the renewable energy sources that we can use, right? Even though we are using electric vehicles or we are like using paper straws, everything, the billionaires of the world are using private jets every day, right? So maybe what we are doing doesn't have an impact, but we have to know, right? We have to know, we have to conserve them, right? And this, how we can conserve them will come under environmental biology. So I won't go into detail. Okay. Let's move on to the fourth issue, sustainable food production. There's another definition there, right? Sustainable food production is the production of sufficient amount of food for the human population using environmentally safe methods. What are the keywords? Sufficient amount and then environmentally safe. Sufficient amount and environmentally safe. Sufficient amount and environmentally safe. Right? Food production doesn't matter if you can't feed what you feed the population, right? So proper food production should be adequate and at the same time it should be environmentally safe. Okay. The current human population is about 7 billion and expected to double in less than 40 years. Therefore, for the survival of human beings, sustainable food production is necessary. Is the human population 7? How much is it now? 8, right? We passed the 8 billion mark last year, I think, right? So the resource is from 2018. No? So within 4 years, people have reproduced to produce a billion more people. Who is the main culprit? India, right? India is responsible mainly. So we have about 8 billion people now. 8.5, my then within 1 year, half a billion people are getting added. Why is that? Because we are solving some issues because our healthcare is very good, right? People are not dying and new people are being born, right? And in Sri Lanka, what do we say very proudly? Our maternal and neonatal deaths, baby deaths are very low, right? Even in the actually in the world statistics, we have some of the very lowest mother and baby deaths at birth, right? Very low number of mothers have problems when they have a baby, right? So in our hospital, actually in our obstetric wards, if a mother and a baby or a baby dies, it's going to be a massive case. So the ministry is going to come and launch a massive investigation because it's going to sort of like lose our place in the world, right? So one death is going to adapt to our statistics, right? Because we are very proud of that statistics, having very low maternal deaths and baby deaths. So they are a whole team from the ministry is going to come and they are going to investigate what happened. Were you not careful, right? They are going to launch a whole investigation, right? So That's one of the reasons why population is increasing, right? Old people are living for a very long time. Babies are not dying, right? So the population is increasing. Okay. And what else do we have? We have vaccinations, right? In your early 90s, there was polio, there was what else were there? Polio, influenza vaccine is now there. Right? Those vaccinations made a massive difference in the life expectancy as well. Okay, clear? To maintain sustainable food production, following methods can be applied, which are based on knowledge in biology, right? 3 strategies we can apply to maintain sustainable food production. First one, high yielding varieties of plants and animals. High yielding. Yielding. High yield. So the harvest you get from these animals or plants is very high. Have you seen this in Australia? These dairy cows, have you seen? Even in Ambevela we have. Have you seen, like, compared to a cow in the sort of the road and compared to those cows, how big they are, right? That is what we call as breeding technology, and sometimes genetic engineering has been involved, right? So from a single cow, you can get like the milk of a single, like 10 normal cows, right? So that is one of the ways we can increase food production, right? Why? We can produce or engineer high yielding varieties. Okay, first thing is that disease resistant. Second thing, write down disease resistant plants and animal varieties. Disease resistant. Disease resistant plants and animal varieties. So it doesn't matter if you have a very big cow, if the cow can't survive a small bacterial infection, right? You have a very massive a cow that is producing so much milk. If that cow can't survive a simple bacterial infection, right? So the cow has to be big and high yielding at the same time, sort of having a good immunity, strong, right? Otherwise, there is no benefit. Third thing, improve post-harvest technological methods. Post-harvest. Post-harvest. Improve post-harvest technological methods. What do you mean post-harvest? Have you seen these lorries coming from Dambulla to the Colombo, like Manning Market or somewhere? Right? How do they look like? Do they pay attention to protecting the carrots and everything? All right. They are supposed to use these sort of plastic boxes so they can stack on top of each other. So what do they use actually? They use plastic bags, plastic like goni, right? I mean, is it very is it a good idea? It's going to damage a lot, right? But what's their logic of not using the plastic boxes? They can't carry a lot, right? They can't load as much vegetables using those plastic boxes, but they don't realize they are going to lose much of the vegetables they transport. Because of that, they are getting crushed. They are getting sort of because of the heat, right? So they are losing a lot of harvest during transport actually and during storage. Like when you store paddy, there's like rats in these massive sort of storage facilities, right? That means why? They are not properly designed or like properly maintained. So many like metric tons of rice and paddy we lose every year because not proper post-harvest technological methods are not there. right? We have to look into how to reduce this pest damage, transport damage, right? And also during when we cook them, right? When we cook the food, if you overcook them, what could happen? Especially if you are cooking food with protein, if you cook them for a very long time, what's going to happen? Have you heard? Right? If you heat protein containing food for a very long time, that is going to destroy the food. So destroy the protein, right? So that is also important. You are so even if your food is getting transported properly, you are storing it properly, but if you are cooking it bad, then you're not going to get the benefit, right? All these things is included in post harvest, right? From the moment you like harvest the paddy or like pluck a fruit till you get it into your mouth, that is post harvest, right? So in that period we have to have proper knowledge and some technology behind it to reduce loss. Okay. Understanding plant life is the next issue. Plants are the primary producers in the world, right? So based on what I taught you earlier, what are they? They are yes, so they do photosynthesis. They are photoautotrophs. Write down in front, like I draw an arrow. Plants are photoautotrophs. Plants are photoautotrophs. They can use sunlight as well as they can use carbon dioxide. All right. So they are very, very useful. They are primary producers. Okay. All animals depend directly or indirectly on plants. Right? Herbivores, that the animals that can only eat plants, they directly depend on, right? Then carnivores, they can't eat plants, so they will eat a herbivore. So they indirectly depend on a plant, right? But who is the starting point? Who is producing the energy? The plant. I mean, there are bacteria that can do this sort of energy fixing, but who is the most commonly consumed? We eat plants, no? Even we eat plants, right? So we consider plants to be the primary producers. Okay. As the human population is increasing, we need to increase productivity. Therefore, understanding plant function and biology is important to produce high yielding plants, disease resistant plants, etc. So that is similar to what I told you. Our cultivating space is decreasing, right? Because of human population is increasing, or we need to build houses and roads and schools, hospitals, whatever. So the space that we have to plant crops is decreasing, right? And also, what did I talk earlier? Desertification. So the amount of proper land is decreasing, like fertile land is decreasing. So we have to use the limited amount of land in a more efficient way. So imagine you had 10 acres to plant earlier because of a new road. Now you have 5 acres, right? And a new school was built or a hospital, right? So now you have 5 acres to plant, right? If you want to get the harvest you took from the 10 acres from the 5 acres, what do you need to do? You have to put some technology into it, right? A better rice variety you can plant, right? Or you can pay attention to protecting that crop, reducing the loss, right? You can use better weed killers, weedicides. You can protect it from insects, right? Those technologies can be applied. Okay. That's what we mean by understanding plant life. So that's it. Again, they say it's an issue that we have to solve using the knowledge of biology. Any questions? Online? No. Okay. Right. Okay. Then next one, understanding diseases and causes. This is I sort of touched in understanding human body as well. To maintain healthy human body, one should have knowledge of the causes of diseases and their effects. Some dangerous diseases which exist in the current world are non-communicable diseases such as cancers, heart disease, diabetes, chronic renal disease, and communicable disease such as dengue and AIDS. So there's a simple classification there. As this is very basic, right? Diseases we can classify into two simple categories as what? Communicable then non-communicable. Write this small classification. Then write down the examples. What are the communicable diseases they have given? Dengue, AIDS, non-communicable, diabetes, cancer, heart disease, chronic renal disease. Communicable and non-communicable. So communicable means somehow if a person has this disease, there's a chance you can get it. Doesn't matter how. There are direct ways you can get. So for example, if you have like a lung infection, if you have influenza or maybe COVID-19 or whatever, you can get directly from like the respiratory particles when they speak or when they sneeze, right? You can get directly, right? Then even HIV using sexual when during sexual contact, or if you get blood from a person that you has AIDS, right? A person who has HIV, maybe he doesn't know he has donated blood, and you are getting that blood, so you don't know. There's a very high chance you are going to get HIV. That's one of the ways. And then these drug addicts, have you seen they are using syringes to inject drugs? Are they using like sterile syringes all the time? Are they going to the pharmacy and I'm going to get a new one every time? They using drugs? No. They use the same syringe among like 10 or 20 people. So all those people, if one person has HIV, all those people are going to get the disease. So that's why, because it's a communicable disease, right? But if you have diabetes and if you get blood from a diabetes person, are you going to get diabetes? No. It has a big genetic component. If your parents and grandparents had diabetes, and if you eat a lot of sugar and don't exercise, you're going to get diabetes. It's non-communicable. Okay? That's the difference. And communicable diseases can have a middleman as well. So who is the middleman in dengue? How do we get dengue? Mosquito, right? Who is, so we call that sort of a middleman a vector. Vector, right? So a person with dengue gets bitten by a mosquito, and that mosquito goes and bite another person. He is the middleman transferring the infection. So communicable can be vector-borne diseases as well. This is a sort of a subcategory. Okay. Okay. Right.
Please. Sir, මාර වැඩසවා.
Right. Okay. So cancers causes for this is not fully understood yet. Cancers are one of the leading causes of death. I told you, right? The mechanism of cancer we don't exactly know. We have some theories. Okay. AIDS is a viral disease, right? Which is a serious and growing health problem worldwide. What is the virus causing AIDS? HIV. What is the HIV long term? Human immunodeficiency virus. Write it down in front of AIDS. Immunodeficiency virus. HIV. What is the long term of AIDS? Human. Sorry. AIDS. What is the long term? acquired immunodeficiency syndrome. Again, a syndrome, right? So actually, once you get HIV virus in your body, it can take about 5 to 10 years to get to the AIDS level. Okay, this is something additional, right? So if you got HIV today, virus entered your body today, now you are HIV, right? You are now HIV infected, but you don't have AIDS at right now. To get AIDS, it takes a long time. It's usually 5 to 10 years. Then you start to have the massive problems associated with this disease. Mainly what? What is the HIV AIDS people? What is their biggest problem? Anyone? No. They don't, they have a very weak immune system. Very weak immune system. Right? So if they get a sore throat, it can go down into their lungs, they can get pneumonia. Right? Our sore throat, our just a runny nose or something, they can be sort of a massive laryngeal infection and they can infect their sort of, have you heard of sinusitis? In the face or semi right? They get massive headaches, right? They can get infected everywhere and that can cause life-threatening condition in these HIV people. Their immunity is very low. That is AIDS. That happens in 5 to 10 years. Okay, right? Keep that in mind. Just if you want, write down the long term of AIDS, acquired immunodeficiency syndrome. Then heart diseases. Heart diseases. I mean, they say causes are not fully understood yet. Actually, we have identified most of the reasons for heart diseases, mainly because of lifestyle, right? And diet, lack of exercise, and there's a genetic part as well. Okay. Chronic renal disease in Sri Lanka recently, CKDU has become a serious health problem. Anyone, do you know what is CKDU? This U in this CKD. So CKD is what? Chronic kidney disease. What is this U? In Sri Lanka, we have a special kidney disease, chronic kidney disease called CKD, chronic kidney disease of unknown etiology. Etiology. That is what the U stands for. Unknown etiology. So we still think, we don't know why we have this much kidney disease patients in Sri Lanka. We don't know, right? But we actually know, right? Most of the assumptions that we have are actually true. Anybody know what are the main reasons for kidney disease? We learn this under our excretory system. When you're studying the kidneys, we have a separate section to study under kidney disease. Some general knowledge? Where do we have CKD a lot? In sort of our north central province, right? Anuradhapura, Polonnaruwa, Monraga, those, what are those areas mainly famous for? They are agricultural areas, right? Mainly paddy cultivation, right? So for paddy cultivation, we use a lot of pesticides, weedicides, right? And these chemicals contain a lot of harmful kidney toxic chemicals, chemicals that are particularly toxic to the kidneys, right? Usually such as heavy metals, such as what? Heavy metals such as lead, tin, arsenic, like those, right? Those are very toxic to the kidneys, right? That is the main reason. These pesticides and weedicides, and also these people, the water they have that they take from their wells, they have a lot of these sort of calcium ions, what we call them as heavy water. They every day they drink this heavy water, right? So that can damage their kidneys as well. And also these pesticides and weedicides, these chemicals can get into their drinking water as well from the underground drainage with rainwater. They drink this. And these people are also not very economically, I mean, not, they are poor people. So they use low quality cooking materials, like the sort of the pans and everything they use to cook food are very low quality, right? Your cheap aluminum, cheap tin containing pans, right? So those pans, especially when they cook something acidic, they can get dissolved and they eat those metal ions, right? So with time, they are going to get kidney disease, right? Very, very huge, serious concern, right? I have given there's a small diagram there in the tube. This also it's in your syllabus. This process. Write down on the diagram. Can you see? There's a machine and a person connected to it. What do you think is that is? Yeah, dialysis. Right? It's actually called hemodialysis. Write down hemodialysis. Sorry, DI. Hemodialysis. 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 This is a very temporary solution. Have you do you have anyone that is undergoing dialysis? Any relative that you know? Right? So depending on how bad their kidneys are, we have to do the function of the kidneys artificially. Right? They have to undergo a small surgery, usually in their hand, sometimes in their neck, where we connect. This is something extra for you, just for your interest. Right? There are two types of blood vessels. No? There are arteries and veins. So what we do in these surgeries, there usually your arteries are deep. They are like deep in your arm. But your veins you can feel. See, right? The blue color ones are your veins, no? Right? They are sort of on the surface. To do this dialysis, what we need to do is we have to dig out one of the arteries that are deep in your arm. I'll draw it in red color. Take it out of your arm and you have to connect it to a vein. Connect it to a vein. This sort of a connection is there. This is your hand, right? This is your, usually here it's done, the surgery. And when this person needs to go dialysis, undergo dialysis, what we do is we put a needle here, and take blood coming from this direction into the machine. And in the machine, you can see there's, can you see there's a solution that we call as dialysate. Have you seen fresh dialysate and used dialysate? It's a very expensive solution, right? That solution can sort of suck all the toxic things in your blood that are supposed to be cleared by the kidneys. But what's the problem? Your kidneys are not working properly. So we have to do it artificially, right? So that dialysis fluid will do the function of the kidneys and take all the toxin, ammonia, excess sodium, potassium, it will purify, filter the blood, and that blood will come back into the body and go back into the body from this way. Okay. So depending on how bad the person's disease is, there are stages to kidney disease, right? Stage 1, stage 2, stage 3, right? How bad the person's disease is, they might have to undergo this dialysis maybe once a week, maybe twice. There are people undergoing 3 times a week as well. This process usually takes, it changes from person to person, about 4 hours, right? 4 hours. And even after doing dialysis, they get like dizziness, they can faint, right? Because the blood is taken out, no? Right? There are so many problems. Some people undergo dialysis and live a normal life, right? But what is the definitive thing that we can do? What is the solution to kidney disease? After the kidney has been damaged after a certain level, what can we do? We have to transplant a new kidney, right? We have to give a new kidney, right? but kidney donations are very rare, and the number of people having CKD is very high compared to the people who are donating kidneys, right? And sometimes even the new kidney can be rejected by the person who is receiving. Rejected means by the body of the person, okay? Because it's something from another person. So your body doesn't like anything from another person. So even though it's helping you, it can be rejected by your body. So this whole surgery could be wasted, right? So until you get a kidney, you have to do this dialysis, okay? In a government hospital, the dialysis sort of the waiting list is very high, very long. So first people don't even get into the dialysis list, they die, right? But in sort of this North Central province, there are special kidney hospitals, right? Dedicated to doing this dialysis and kidney diseases, treating these diseases, right? So I'm mentioning this because it's in your syllabus, okay? Currently, scientists are working on prevention, remedial measures, and cures for such diseases. Okay. For AIDS, actually, we have actually a very good antiviral medications, right? AIDS, many people don't know this. We can almost cure AIDS now, right? We have medications, especially we give them to pregnant mothers that have HIV. We can reduce their viral count to 0 before having the baby, because the virus will go into the baby definitely through the, have you seen the umbilical cord, right? Babata කෙලින්ම අම්මගෙන් HIV යන්න පුළුවන්. But there are medications now, right? To, I mean, we can't cure it, but we can reduce it to 0, right? If we stop the medication, it will come back, right? But we can reduce it to 0. So there is some progress. There is some progress, right? Got it? Understanding diseases and causes. Finally, solving some legal and ethical issues. Knowledge and application of biological concepts is important in solving some legal issues such as parentage testing, criminal investigations, and to solve immigration disputes. Okay, right. DNA fingerprinting is used in these circumstances. So in your tute, I have given a small something interesting for you to do. This is called DNA fingerprinting. Do you see in the previous page? Right, now you tell me. This is one of the techniques, one of the legal techniques that we have. DNA fingerprinting, right? We can do this in many situations. So imagine a girl has been raped, all right? What is the first thing that we say? Like, have you heard? So you have to go to a hospital there if has been some damage, right? You have to go to a hospital. But in the hospital before, I mean, if it's life-threatening, we treat. But before doing anything, what we do is there's a sort of a kit called a rape kit in hospitals, right? A rape kit that has this sort of cotton buds and other sort of sample taking equipment are there, plastic bottles to put the samples. So definitely a person who was raped will have the sort of DNA of the person who did the raping, right? Maybe it could be hair, could be blood. If the person has scratched them, they could have blood underneath their nails. These are real things, right? That comes to the hospital. Or there can be sperm, right? They have been raped now. Very high chance there could be sperm, right? Right? So all these samples can be collected because yes, we have to treat the person, but also we have to punish the rapist also, right? So one of the techniques that we have after collecting those samples is we can do a DNA fingerprint. So this is a different situation. This is a paternity testing, right? But imagine, imagine male 1 and male 2 are the suspects of the rape, right? So we have here another DNA fingerprint of sperm or maybe blood found on the body of the person who was raped, right? So it will give these lines like this, right? This is the sample and these are the two suspects, right? By comparing the two fingerprints side by side, we can immediately narrow down from the series of suspects who is the actual rapist here, right? In this situation, they will exactly match because this is the same person's blood, no? This is, I mean, you can sort of present this to the court. උසාවියට දෙන්න පුළුවන් මේක. DNA fingerprint එක. It's very acceptable. But here we are not talking about that sort of criminal testing. We are talking about අර තාත්තව හොයන්නේ කොහොමද කියලා. එයි අපි තාත්තව හොයන්නේ. අයි අම්මව හොයන්න try එකක් දෙන්නේ නැත්තේ. Usually the mother gives birth, right? So always there's a mother, but the father is the one difficult to find, right? So this is the baby, right? And maybe for the divorce court or maybe there's some other problem, there's a need to find who is the father. But the mother doesn't know which one of these two is the father, right? So what we can do is we can do a paternity testing. Write down under that. This is a paternity test. This is also in your molecular, okay? This is from your resource book, this diagram. I didn't take from the internet. This is from your molecular biology, okay? This is a paternity test. So I told you I'm not going to go out of syllabus, even if, I mean, in a very difficult situation, I'll take something extra, but all these are in the syllabus, okay? This is from your molecular resource book. So, okay, tell me, who is the father? Is it male 1 or male 2? So the blue ones in the baby are received from the mother. Parts of DNA received from the mother. Who is the father? Online students? Who is the father? Yeah. Male 1 or male 2? Online students? Male 1 or male 2? Simple pattern recognition. Yeah. Male 1 or male 2? 1. How do you know that? Can you see the parallel things, right? Corresponding. This corresponds to this. This corresponds to this. There are no similar ones in male 2. This corresponds to this, but this is shared. So that is sort of ignored, right? There is a criteria, right? So in the DNA fingerprint, there's a certain number. If that above that number there's a matching, then we consider that as sort of legally acceptable. So this one matching. This one matching. We can accept. Male 1 is the father. Okay. There's a TV show, right? So who is the father? TV show. You are not the father, right? So that's what they do. DNA paternity testing using fingerprinting, right? Got it? Okay, clear. Right. So DNA fingerprinting, immigration issues, criminal investigation, I told you, mainly these sort of rape situations. And also, if there's a burglary, right? It could be, just normal fingerprints are also fingerprints, but that's old technology. So DNA fingerprinting is a modern thing. Okay, that's it. Then the final section. Before going to that, can we do a question? Turn to the last page. Turn to the last page. (2020) question. The first organisms formed on Earth are considered to be. 30 seconds. First organisms formed on Earth are considered to be. Online students, the tute is available in the group. Last page of the tute. I didn't change the numbers because get it right. Usually the first question of your paper, right? You get the start to your paper from introduction to biology. Usually the first question or the second question is from introduction to biology. The first organism formed on Earth are considered to be. Yes. Done? What's the answer? What's the answer? Four. Agree. Heterotrophic, anaerobic, prokaryotes. Right? Heterotrophic, anaerobic, prokaryotes. You will think this is very easy, right? So this is my A level here, 2020. Okay. So I remember sitting down to the exam and thinking, are they heterotrophic or autotrophic? Because they originally, did they have carbon sources, organic carbon to consume? Because after 2.5 years, you have completely ignored introduction, right? So from the first MCQ, I was confused, right? Get it? So that's how important it is. එතනින්ම like අර confidence එක චුට්ටක් හෙල්ලුණා. Got it? So it's very important. There's a small structure there also, like second structured question number 1. A question number 1. How many years ago did life originate on Earth? Yes. First organisms, how old are they? 3.8. No, 3.8. Okay, let's move on. Because we started late, we stay a bit late, okay? Right? Then nature and organizational patterns of the living world. So this is something not that important, right? So there's a lot of variation, right? We can see a lot of differences in animals in these sort of criteria, in their size, in their shape, in their form, in their habitat. There is variety, right? So the size can be from 0.25 micrometers. This is not this is micro. You know this logo symbol, right? Micro. Correct it. Micrometers. So 0.25 micrometers to giant redwood, 100 meters tall, 100 meters tall, right? Then there are like blue whales that are like, I think, 25 to 30 meters long, right? Then shape. Organisms are diverse in their shape. What are the different shapes that they have mentioned? Cylindrical earthworm, streamline shape. What is streamline shape? Have you seen these sort of very fast birds, such as falcons? They have this sort of a what we call as a spindle shape when they are sort of tucking their wings, right? So the air can flow smoothly over them, right? Like this. So if this is the organism, a very fast bird, they can cut through air very smoothly, very low air resistance, right? That's what they mean by streamline. You can just draw this. We call this also spindle shape. Spindle. Online students, any questions? You can hear me, right? Streamline shape or spindle shape. So that is the variety in or the diversity in shape. Then form, unicellular or multicellular are the two main forms. An organism can be a single cell or multicellular, right? We have trillions of cells in our body, multicellular. Habitat, terrestrial, aquatic, arboreal, aerial, right? Arboreal means what? Lives on trees. Who is this Loris? Manu said. Loris. Anybody know Loris? What is the common name? Uh, there's a special Loris for in Sri Lanka. Special Loris called Slender Loris. Okay, it's in your syllabus. Okay, Slender Loris. Unahapulu. Okay, Slender Loris. It's endemic to Sri Lanka. Lankaවට ආවේනිකයි. Right, Unahapulu. Loris. They live on trees. They rarely come down. And what else always lives on trees? Have you heard koalas? Koala bear? Koala bears? They live on trees. They never touch foot on the ground if they can't help it. Right? Yeah, okay. Koala bears. Then right? They always live on trees, right? So arboreal. Aerial birds. They can fly. Clear? Now we come to one of the things I talked in the very first of our very beginning of our lesson, characteristics of living organisms. How can we scientifically say that this desk is not living, right? Just because it's not moving, can we say it's not living? There are like, have you heard sea cucumbers? Sea cucumbers that are in the deep ocean, they never move, they can't move. They are what we call as sessile. They can't move, sessile. Just because the desk is not moving, can we say it's non-living? No, right? That is only one of the things of a living organism. That is what? I mean, actually doesn't need to necessarily need to move to be a living organism as well. But we have some other very scientific criteria. All these criteria must be observed in the living organism to consider it as living. What is the first thing? Order and organization. Order and organization. Right? What is it? What does it say? From molecular level to biosphere, there's order and organization in organisms perform their biological activities efficiently. Lower level components are organized in a methodical pattern in upper level to make it most efficient. Plant, leaf, and human eyes. Right. So order and organization, jump to the page before last. Jump to page before last. Hierarchical levels of organization in living things. What is a hierarchy? It's a rank, right? It's a rank. So if we take our country, what is the highest rank? President, prime minister. Then we have speaker of the parliament. Then the forces, sort of heads of the forces. Then we have, then ministers or hierarchy to the lowest government worker. There's a hierarchy. In the living world, there's this ranking system as well, right? From the simplest thing to the biggest level. Okay. So to be considered a living organism, that organism should have a proper pattern of organization. Lassant organize වෙලා තියෙනවා. Otherwise, we can't consider it. Okay. So in your syllabus, we start this organization at molecule level. Molecule. Okay. Molecule level, I will draw here. So, I think in physics, you will learn about the subatomic particles and everything, atoms and, right? Subatomic particles are also there, like. But for biology knowledge, no need. We start with molecules. Molecules, biological molecules can be carbohydrates, proteins, DNA, right? Lipids, all these things are the molecules, right? Molecules get together to form things inside the cell. What are the things that you know inside a cell? Chloroplast, mitochondria. Then what else did you learn in O-level? Endoplasmic reticulum. Learned, right? Golgi apparatus. What else? Ribosomes. All those things are not, for your level, organelles. Next level, organelles. Organelles, a set of organelles can come together with a nucleus, mitochondria, chloroplast, ribosome. They can form a functional level cell. Very, very important. Cell is so important, right? This is the starting point of what we consider as living. May set a living, non-living. But is that we are including them in our hierarchy. These are not living. Everything below the cell, above, everything after the cell are living. So what is the basic living thing that you can find? If you break down a living organism, what is the simplest living part of him? The cell. Okay, very, very important. We say cell is the basic structural and functional unit of life, right? If it's a multicellular organism, millions and trillions of cells get together to form the animal, right? And the cell can survive on its own as well, right? It's a functional unit. එයාට එයාගේ energy හදා ගන්න පුළුවන්, right? එයාට එයාගේ proteins ටික හදා ගන්න පුළුවන්, right? It's a functional unit, right? Then what comes after cell? A group of cells. What do we call a group of cells? A tissue. Tissue, right? Tissues get together to form an organ. A set of organs get together to form what? Set of organs get together to form what? That is missing from my diagrams there. Right? So you can see the molecules. 10 is molecules, then 9 is organelles, 8 cells, 7 tissues, 6 organs. Then we jump to organisms. There's one level missing, that is organ systems. Okay, organ systems. Organ goes to organ systems. Draw an arrow from organ to organ systems, then organism. Okay. Organ system. A set of organ systems get together to form organism. Methaning apita complete organism can combine, right? Is complete. Then we start to come to actually what we call as a ecological hierarchy. Environment එකේ තියෙන hierarchy එකට තමයි ඊළඟට අපි. Right? That hierarchy starts with organism, The next thing is called a population. I'll draw it in green. These are ecological hierarchies, right? A community. A community or population? Population, sorry. Population. I'll explain, right? Then the next level is a community. Community goes to, what's the next level? Ecosystem, right? Then finally, who is the biggest, highest level? Includes everything that is living and non-living in the world, right? Sorry, living component, sorry, biosphere. This is the highest level. So let's take an example. There's a muscle cell, right? There's a heart muscle cell. We call it a cardiac muscle cell, right? There's a cardiac muscle cell. That is the basic structural and functional unit. A set of cardiac muscle cells get together and form a cardiac muscle, right? We give it a special name. I mean, we can call it the myocardium, right? Meva syllabus එකේ තියෙන terms, right? Your heart muscle layer is called myocardium. Then what is the organ formed by the heart muscle? Heart, right? It forms the heart. Heart is part of what system? Blood circulatory system. So what are the other organs in the blood circulatory system? Blood vessels, arteries, veins, vertical, right? That's an organ system. What are the other organ systems that you need to make an organism? You need blood circulation, breathing, gas exchange, dispose of waste, excretory system, protection by immune system, getting nutrients by the digestive system, and controlling everything, like making sure everything is smoothly done by nervous system, coordination. Then making sure you don't die alone, right? You make a future generation, reproductive system, and providing support so you can walk and contract your muscles, skeletal system. All those systems get together to form a complete organism. That is the hierarchical level of life, and these are ecological hierarchies. Okay, so population, the definition is, you can write down population write down in the page before last, okay, before the questions. Population, a group of organisms, a group of organisms, a group of organisms of the same species, that interbreed with each other, interbreed, like breed with each other, interbreed with each other in a given area at a given time. I'll repeat again. A group of organisms of the same species that interbreed with each other in a given area at a given time. That is a population. What are the criteria to be a population? ඔක්කොමලා එක species එකේ වෙන්න ඕනේ. Right? ඔක්කොමලා එක species එකේ වෙන්න ඕනේ. And they should live in the same area at the given time. Right? නිකන් 1920s වල හිටපු human population එකකුයි දැන් ඉන්න population එකකුයි, they are not the same population. right? They have to live in the same time period and in the same area. What is an example? Gamak, right? The population of a village. They live in the same area in the same time and probably interbreeding with each other, right? That's a population. Okay. Then community. Community, write down. There's some space here and there, right? Some spaces, right? Community, several populations of different species, several populations of different species living in a particular area, living in a particular area, living in a particular area, interacting with each other. Living in a particular area, interacting with each other. Okay. එතකොට මොකක්ද ඒ කියන්නේ? Give me an example for a community, like a village close to the forest, right? Then you have, that's a community, right? So the human population is there. There's an elephant population. There's a deer population, leopards, common populations are there. So they are interacting, right? So the elephant comes and kills a human, and the deer comes and eats the human's the harvest, and the human kills the deer and eats them. So those are interactions, right? That's a community, right? And also that includes the plants, right? So if you have a paddy field, the farmer and the paddy field are part of a community, right? They are interacting with each other. The farmer plants the paddy field and the paddy field feeds the farmer. So they are interacting with each other. That's a community. What's the key feature of a community? They are different species, several different species. They are interacting with each other. Okay. Then ecosystem, right? Write down. A functional dynamic unit, a functional dynamic unit containing all the living organisms in a community functional dynamic unit containing all the living organisms in a community living in a community and abiotic component abiotic component with which they interact I repeat, functional dynamic unit containing all the living organisms in a community and the abiotic component with which they interact. Give me an example for the abiotic components. Water, right? Then atmospheric air, soil. Those are the few things, right? Abiotic components. So that is included in an ecosystem. Go give me an example for an ecosystem. A pond, right? A pond has a fish, aquatic organisms, amphibians, gemboidna, right? Then there are aquatic plants, right? So that is an ecosystem. Key thing to remember about an ecosystem is what? It includes abiotic things, right? Then not only does it include living people, living organisms, it includes the abiotic component as well. So when you are describing an ecosystem, you have to mention the abiotic component. Finally, biosphere. Biosphere is what? Just write down. consists of all the ecosystems on Earth. Biosphere consists of all the ecosystems on Earth. Biosphere consists of all the ecosystems on Earth. Consists of all the ecosystems on Earth. Do you have another class at ISM today? 2027? Yes. Chemistry? Physics? When does it start? When does it start? When does it start? Starting time? 12:30? 1? You have to have lunch, no? Right. Then let's do a question and stop for the day. Okay. So we'll cover other characteristic organisms quickly next week. Okay. First thing we'll cover those because we had some time, sort of we wasted a few minutes to get started, right? So come to the question sheet and there's two questions that is same, right? Basic structural and functional unit of life. The second question and the third question. Which of the following is considered as the basic functional unit of life? Quickly do that. 2019 question and the 2024 question. What's the answer? Say. Right? They're asking two things, right? First one is a complete description, basic, functional, and structural. Right? That is definitely cell. What is the basic functional unit? Again, the cell. Right? So even your nucleus, they have functions, but we can't consider it as a functional unit because if we take the nucleus out, will it function independently? No, it has to have all the other cellular components in a cell to be functional, right? So everything below the level, molecules, organelles, not functional. Got it? Yeah, that's all we can sort of the questions that we can cover today. So we'll finish the rest of the characteristics of organisms. That is, so we have done order and organization, metabolism done. Sorry, metabolism, growth, development, irritability, coordination, adaptation, reproduction, hereditary, and evolution. Quickly, I'll finish in 30 minutes maybe next week. So a few notices I'm planning to do next week as a free session as well, right? So being realistic, I know you need some time to decide, right? This is a serious decision. I mean, one of the worst things you can do is after being into the A levels, then hunting for classes, right? You don't need that confusion. So I'm going to do another free session so that you can take informed decisions. You can think about the decision. And so next week will be also a free session. So you can come and join the second part of the lesson as well. So we'll be starting chemical and cellular basis, right? And so you know my plan, right? Anything clear? We made a plan together. And with your support, we can stick to the plan and make this sort of the journey not time wasting, not headache free, right? Because that's what you need for A levels. You're going to have family problems. You're going to have maybe relationship problems. Maybe, I mean, I don't know what, anything can happen in these 2 years. So from this point on, I mean, starting from this point, decide on a sort of a headache-free pathway, right? You have to take that decision. You're adults, almost adults, right? So next week also you can join and see, right? And may take that decision. It's all totally up to you, right? Okay, thank you for coming. See you next week. Okay.